We're going to spend the next session talking about the decision maker meeting, getting the appointment set, a little bit about what happens in that appointment, but I really want to talk about objections, and then at the very end of the program, I want to go through a formula that I developed that will tell you how many calls you need to make based on the amount of money you'd like to earn. Okay, and that way, because I think it's very important, and one of the things that we don't talk about very often is how much activity you need to do to be able to get the results that you want. And I think there's a lot of people out there that believe that if they make 1, 2, 3, 10 calls in group, that everybody's going to say yes, you're going to get in, you're going to make the money that you want, and it doesn't always happen that way. And so I developed this formula to set all of my goals based on my business. And I'll just tell you also that I believe in the major and the minor system. I don't know, most of us has gone to college or some type of school and you had to declare your major and your minor. My major in my business, 70% of my business is group, small business, and CDL. Because that's where I like to focus, because I like to speak to groups of people. 30% of my business is based on recruiting. If you haven't determined your major and your minor in your business, you really need to sit down and think about where you want to be spending your time. Because it's very, very important to really have that identified within your business so that you know the types of activity that you need to do, so that when you're setting up those activities, you're doing it for the right section of your business, and then you're going to actually have some achievement of your goals. Because otherwise we just get frustrated because we feel like we're not making any headway. Okay? So, for those of you who don't know me, one of the things that I always like to do in my presentations is there's always a theme. And since we were in the country music capital of the world, I figured we might as well have a theme on the Nashville sound and relate this whole program to the making of a song, okay? And that way, it also makes it easier for you guys to remember some of these things too, okay? So when the evolution of a song, or when a song is actually being built, you have to pick the style of your song. So whether it's rap or country or classical, whatever that is, but I'm sticking with country because I'm a country girl. And we're in Nashville. So then you have to figure out your melody and the bass portion of it. And bass is actually spelled wrong. I love autocorrect. That should be B-A-S-S. The lyrics, the recording studio, and then putting your song together. And that's really what we're going to go through today. So let's talk about picking your style. Number one, you have to develop a list of who you're going to call on. And there's lots of ways to do that. And you have your warm market, you have networking, and you have the cold market. What we don't do well as associates that are bringing new associates on, is that we're asking them for a list of who they want to recruit and market to in the business, but we typically do not ask them for a list of who they know in businesses, small businesses, who they do business with, or who they work for. How many people do you recruit that work for someone else? We do all the time, right? Because most people, when they come into the business, they're not leaving their current position, career, profession, and starting with Legal Shield full-time right away. So they're working for someone. Their friends all work for someone. And so it's really important that we help them build their list on who they already know, because those people know decision makers, and it's going to make it much easier for you, because then it becomes not so much a cold call, it's a warm or lukewarm call. And those are so much easier than a cold call. Would anybody agree with that? Okay. Does anybody love to cold call? Okay, there's always one or two in the room. Okay. And there are people that love to cold call. And just so I have kind of an idea of the audience today, how many of you have opened 1 to 5 groups? Okay. How many of you have not opened any groups? Okay, very good. That just gives me an idea. So the other thing that we have to talk about when we're talking about picking our style is a lot of people say, well, should I call or should I walk in? Have you ever asked that question? How many of you like to call to set appointments? How many of you like to walk in? How many of you like to do both? Great, because you should do both. I am a true believer that yes, you need to make your phone calls, but when you're out making on an appointment, then you also need to utilize the Wilburn-Smith method of, if I come out of a business, there's typically a business to the left, to the right, across the street, or across the corner, and I need to call on all of those. And so I need to walk in and make that, and start that process with those businesses around me as well. So you're going to have to develop what you want to do, call or walk in. The other question I always get is, when do you make your calls? I like to make my calls at 7:45 in the morning. Because guess who isn't there? The gatekeeper. The business owner is typically there, right? Because if they're a small business owner, they're focused on their business, they're going to be there. Many times the gatekeeper is not there till 8 to 8:15, and so you have 15 minutes of time where you can really make a lot of phone calls and get past those gatekeepers. And if you're making follow-up phone calls on companies that you've already called on, and you know they have a gatekeeper, that's the perfect time to call, because then you're not getting all the questions, you're not getting transferred to voicemail right away, because a business owner doesn't want their phone to ring and not have somebody answer it. So typically I like to make a lot of my calls at 7:45 to 8:15, can get it done. It's that big, the 800-pound gorilla one that we don't want to do, but if it's first on the list, then the rest of the day goes really well because you're done, right? Okay, and it's tough. Cold calling, it's not easy. And I actually am going to share a book with you in the next slide that has made it a lot easier for me to be able to cold call and pick up the phone, and it's actually in your slides as well. But if you're calling, you need to develop your script, because you don't want to start calling without knowing what you're going to say, correct? Okay, here comes one of our participation ideas. I want you to pair up with someone, either turn around or, someone close. We don't want to have a lot of chaos, but I want you to find somebody that you don't know and pretend, pick an A and a B. So find somebody you don't know right now. Turn around. You may have to turn around in your chair. Okay, pick an A and a B. Who's A? Who's B? Okay. B's, because you're chicken, you get to go first. You have 10 seconds to say who you are, the name of your company, what you want. Because when you're calling for an appointment, what is your objective? Get the appointment. It is not to sell them Legal Shield or identity theft over the phone, correct? It is not to have a conversation about the weather or what happened at the baseball game last night or whatever the situation is, correct? Your objective is to get the appointment. So, in 10 seconds, your name, where you're calling from, and what you want. Ready? Bees, here you go.
Hey, Tim.
As an employee benefit, to set up time, 15 minutes of your time.
Okay, you should be done. That was 10 seconds. That's fast, isn't it? The reason that I take you through that for 10 seconds is it's not to make you talk fast, but to understand when we get on the phone how long-winded we are.
Right.
Because we start getting into these phone calls, and all of a sudden they're a minute long, 2 minutes long, 3 minutes long. Are we an interruption in this business owner's day? Yes. And so we need to be a brief, succinct interruption, because a lot of times when people will call, or I'm calling people, I will say, "Hi, this is Patti Nelson from Legal Shield. Do you have 30 seconds?" And a lot of times I'll get, "Well, yes," or I'm going to get, "Well, what is this about? What is this about?" And that's when I'll say, "Do you have 30 seconds for me to explain?" And if they say yes, then I have permission to, "This is Patti Nelson. I'm with Legal Shield. I'm calling from Houston, Texas." And I go into boom, boom, boom. Okay? Because, and the reason I set it up that way is because I asked for about 11 to 12 minutes to meet with the business owners. 11 because it's different than 15. A lot of people will just say 15. It's perfectly fine, but it can't be more than 15 because again, you're an interruption in their day. And so I asked for 15 minutes or 11 minutes because it's different, and they are like, 11 minutes? Well, what is she going to sell me in 11 minutes? I'm not there to sell them, I'm there to give information. And so a lot of times they'll take the appointment because they're curious on what am I going to do in 11 minutes. But the important portion of that is I set it up on the phone that I only need 30 seconds because then they already know that I'm going to adhere to my time frame. When I get there for the decision maker meeting and it's less than 11 minutes, I adhere to my time frame. So when I ask for 15 or 20 minutes for the enrollment, they know I'm going to stick with that. So I've already have a built-in trust factor with the decision maker because I've held to my time frames. Okay? Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
I noticed you didn't ask if you were speaking to the owner of the business. Do you just assume that because of the time you're calling that you're getting the owner?
If it's 7:45 early in the morning, yes, I assume that but most of the time I know who I'm calling for. So I know that if Bill answers the phone, that's who I want to talk to. Okay? Now, here's something that happened just yesterday. I was calling in for an appointment, and I knew who I was calling for because he was the safety manager. But when I got him on the phone, he said, "Oh, well, I don't do that job anymore." You have to be prepared for that, right? So what do you say? I said, "Well, who took that position now?" And they said, "Oh, it's Patrick." I said, "Great, can you connect me to Patrick?" He said, "Well, I'm on my cell phone, but if you'll call back in 3 seconds, I can flip it over to the office phone and you can talk directly to Patrick." I said, "Okay." So I hung up, waited for 3 seconds, called back in, got the office assistant, who then transferred me right to Patrick, got the appointment set. Okay?
All right.
And it's important that you're ready for those types of things, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but you need to develop your script. There's a lot of different ways to call. I'm not going to tell you that my way is perfect. There's multiple things that you can say on the phone. You can talk about how it's going to help the employees, it's going to cut down on their costs, it will, it can keep their people focused and on the job. All of those things that we've already listed in our decision maker folder, all of that language is exceptional for when you're calling. But again, your phone conversation has one objective, which is to set the appointment, and it needs to be short, sweet, and succinct. Be prepared and practice it though. If you're calling, you are much more efficient with your time. Because I can make 50 phone calls in about 30 to 45 minutes versus walking into 30 or 40 businesses. It's much more efficient when you're calling. Not everybody likes to call, and I understand that, but at some point in time, you're probably going to need to call in getting your business going. When to call, we've already talked about it. I'm just going to tell you, cold calling can be intimidating. All right? But it's okay. Nobody has died from cold calling. And just so you know that I'm telling you the truth, I actually researched it, I pulled it up on the internet, and there is no one that has ever died from cold calling. All right? It'll make your heart beat. It'll be like you've exercised a little because it will make your hands sweat and everything else, but it won't be bad, I promise. You'll live through it. What do you do when you walk in? It's the same situation. You want to develop your script. The script that you have when you walk in is going to be very similar to what you have when you're on the phone. A lot of times when I'm walking in, I'm just walking in, especially if I'm out on an appointment, I'm going to walk into the businesses around, not necessarily to go through and meet the decision maker at that point in time. I just want to know who the person is that I need to call back in for. Because if I walk in and Jane is the receptionist, I'm just going to walk in and say, "Hi Jane, Patti Nelson. I was just in the area. I was working with the company next door. Saw your business front. I'd really like to get a business card of the person in charge of the company or in charge of benefits." Because all I want is that person's name right then and there. I'm not going to ask for the appointment then because, again, I would be an interruption. They're not expecting me to be there. I don't want to do that to the business owner because I want to have a relationship with that person. I want to build that trust immediately. So all I'm after is the name of who I need to call back in for. And then I will ask Jane, what's the best time to get a hold of Bill?
Probably about 10 a.m.
10 a.m., great. So I'll probably be calling you in the next couple days. You probably won't remember me, but that's okay. I'll remind you. But I'm going to be calling back in, and thank you so much for your help, and I leave. Because then I've already established a relationship right off the bat with Jane. So when I call back and Jane picks up the phone, I can say to Jane, hey Jane, this is Patti Nilsson. I stopped into your business a couple days ago and asked for the owner's name. I was calling to see if I could talk with Bill today. Okay? And she's going to tell me he's in or not. Now, if he's in, great, because she's going to put me through. Now, sometimes they're going to say, well, what's this about? Well, again, we're going to go through some more of that. But when you develop your script, be comfortable with it. Okay? I can give you all the scripts in the world, but if it's not comfortable coming out of your mouth, it's not going to work for you. So utilize who you are, what you know, who you are as a person in developing that script. And there's tons of scripts everywhere. You can also go out to facebook.com, to the mastermind, the Legal Shield Group Mastermind. There's lots of scripts that are posted on that Facebook page as well. So pick and choose what works for you best. It's an efficient use of your time when you're already out. But I don't go out to just go to a shopping mall or a strip center and start pulling doors. I only walk in when I'm out on an appointment already. Who do you prospect? Everybody. I always tell people in my group schools that you really want to focus on those groups from basically 5 to 8. Now, why would I say that? Easier to get into. You can get the decision maker quicker. It's easier for them to make a decision to pull their people together. You're not having to go through 4 layers of management to get a decision. And so it's a great focus. But everybody seems to want to go after the 300, the 400, the 1,000 person group that they know. And that's fine. But I will tell you that for every 100 employees that you add to the mix, you're adding 30 to 45 days sometimes to the closing ratio. Because there's just too many things that have to go on to pull them in. So if you focus on 20 to 80, you're going to have a lot more people to call on. It's going to be easier to get to the decision maker and for them to make that decision. Plus, the majority of the companies in the United States have 99 employees or less. And that also allows you to come back around with the small business plan as well. Okay? So because I believe in being a full service associate. I walked into a business 3 months ago. It was a storefront. I had met the gentleman at a networking event. I called on him, had the appointment, sold him a small business plan and a personal plan. And he said, well, I have 8 employees. I said, great, we could come in and offer this as an employee benefit. He said, wonderful, we'll set that up. We set that up. I said, who owns the building next door with the 40 trucks in the parking lot? He said, oh, that's my second business. I said, really? I said, well, the small business plan that you have for this business will also work for your trucking company. You can have a business plan for your trucking company as well. But if you've got 40 trucks, do you have 40 drivers? He said, yes. I said, well, we need to offer our CDL plan to your drivers as well. And so instead of having the one business plan and the personal plan that I thought that I was going in, I had a group of 8, which I signed 6 of the 8 when we did that enrollment. And then I sold another small business plan and set up an enrollment for the trucking guys. And when I met with the trucking guys, signed 20 of 40 of those. Now, if you're not a full service associate and understand group, small business, CDL, and have that access, are you going to leave money on the table? How many of you are a fan of leaving money on the table? No hands went up. I can't believe that. So you want to be able to utilize all of those skills. And if you're not consistently going back to group, small business, CDL school, please do it, because there's so much changing right now with our company and all the new things that are coming out. Keep going back because you're going to get better at it. So now let's talk about what you have for your melody. Your melody is your script. Cold Calling Techniques, this book by Stephen Schiffman. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It is an easy read. It's very, very succinct, but it has exceptional tips for cold calling. And it's very direct, because Stephen Schiffman is in the business of cold calling for his businesses. And he has several. And he does it on a day-to-day basis. And so this book is exceptional as far as helping you stumble through some of those mines in the minefield of cold calling. Highly recommend that book. It shifted my business dramatically after I utilized some of those techniques and read the book. So highly recommend that book. Cold Calling Techniques by Stephen Schiffman. And you need the techniques on there because there is another book that's very close to that. Cold calling. You know, when you are making that script, we talked about this. Who are you? Because if you say who you are, can they say, now who is calling? Right? Okay. Who are you with? I always say Legal Shield. Because most people still have not heard of us. Okay? Even though we were prepaid legal, and some people will say, isn't that prepaid legal? Yes, it is, but our new name is Legal Shield. Where are you? I always say I'm calling from Houston, Texas. And the reason I do that is because in Houston, people want to know that they're dealing with someone local. If I'm calling into San Antonio, they like to know that I'm not in town, but I come to San Antonio frequently. It just helps them get a visual of who you are and where you're calling from. So, what do you want? Your objective. What do you want? Are you sure? Nobody was really sure on that. What do you want? 30 seconds, because what is your objective? Get the appointment. You have to go in with that mindset all the time that it's not to talk on the phone, it's to get that appointment. That's the only thing that you want to do. And so that when they start badgering you on, everything else that's going on out there, or what they want to know, or why would we want to do this, you can always come back to, I just want the appointment. I just want the appointment. And then you have to have your 10-second commercial. Here's some things that are very, very helpful for you to understand in our business. We currently have 34,000 group accounts across the United States and Canada. But what's really interesting is we have 80,000 companies that have some kind of our service in there. Whether it's a small business plan, a group, or CDL plan or something like that, there's 80,000 companies that have our services. So I'm not using the 34,000 anymore. I'm using 80 because it sounds a whole lot more impressive. Okay? You can also, in your commercial, sometimes people, and I'm not a fan of this, they want to talk about the legal plan or talk about identity theft. You can go either way. It doesn't matter if you lead with identity theft or lead with legal, but in my, when I'm calling, I'm not talking about what Legal Shield does. I just want them to understand that we're here to help their bottom line, help their employees, and I want to be able to have that 15 minutes or 11 minutes to talk with you as the decision maker. I don't want to go into, because the minute you start going into what we do, what happens on the phone?
They think they know.
They think they know, there's questions, the phone conversation becomes very long, and you're not holding to being short, sweet, and succinct with that business owner, and making sure that it's effective use of his time or her time. So again, that's going to help you in developing that script. So now for the bass part of our song, BASS, who are you calling for? Now, I hate almost saying this because a lot of people want to research things to death. Anybody ever heard of analysis paralysis? Okay. How many of you know what the pile management system is? Okay, on your desk, I'm just going to see if you have this visual, okay? Pile management. Because we get really good at this, right? You're sitting at your desk and you have a stack of stuff here. You have a stack of business cards from the networking event. You have the stack that you want to call, or the list of people that you want to call in the stack of the piles over here, right? And so we get ready to make those phone calls, and it's like, okay, I've got to organize these business cards, so I get them all in an order, right? And I've got my papers stacked here, and I'm going to move the papers over here because I'll be more efficient because my phone's here, and I've got my computer screen up, right? And it's pile management. And so you spend 30 to 45 minutes or 2 to 3 hours managing your piles and moving them around, playing dominoes or chess with them on your desk. And then all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock and you've got to go to the luncheon, or, you see what I mean? And we get into this mode of we're not going to get anything done, or we're analyzing everything so much on who we need to be calling, where we need to find the information, that we never make the calls. So I'm always very hesitant to say, do some research to find out who you need to call, but that research should only be about that long. Because with Manta, with Reference USA, with Chamber of Commerce lists, with networking lists, you can find out who those business owners are very quickly. And like I said, being prepared when you call is, if that's not the person anymore, then you're asking for who that might be. Then, of course, we have the dreaded gatekeeper, right? How many of you like gatekeeper? How many of you have ever been a gatekeeper? Okay. Vicki, what is the gatekeeper's job?
To sort the people who call and prioritize who I put through.
Okay. And how did you prioritize who you put through?
I determined if there was a need to know, and that was my job.
Okay. So that's a key point. How do we make sure that we're on the priority list for what the owner needs to know? Part of it is posture. I always love it when I say posture because everybody sits up straighter in their chair. That's not the posture I'm talking about, but that's okay. I'm glad everybody sat up, okay? That's that physical therapist in me. The thing is our posture has to be bulletproof on what we're doing. How many of you have utilized your membership at least 10 times? Okay, now for those of you who didn't raise your hand, is it because you just joined and you haven't called the law firm? Or you just haven't had the membership long enough to call 10 times? I'm getting a few nods. Okay, here's something that I would challenge you to do. When I first got into this business 10 years ago, I did not believe that the ability to call the law firm would be unlimited or that they would call me back. I just wasn't sure. Because to me, every time somebody says something that is unlimited, there's always restrictions, right? The only thing that I knew that wasn't unlimited is a buffet. Okay? The rest of you will get that in about 30 seconds. But I needed to be bulletproof about my membership and understand what was going to happen. And so for the first 30 days that I had my membership, I called our law firm in Texas 4 times a day. Wow. Because I just made a list of questions I'd always wanted to have answered. But I wanted to make sure that they'd always call me back, that there was somebody going to be there, that I wasn't going to get a bill. So I became absolutely bulletproof that there was always going to be somebody there on the other end of that membership. Okay? And then, because I went to group school, because I went to small business school, because I studied the membership and I became bulletproof on our membership, nobody could tell me it didn't work. And so when I get the gatekeepers that don't want to hear about it, that don't want to do this, that don't want to do that, they don't know what it is. And so it becomes my job to just say, I just want to give you some information. That's all I'm after, so that you know about a premier service that's out there. But you have to be bulletproof in that, because if you're not, then your posture on the phone is something like, Hi, this is Patti Nelson with Legal Shield, and I was just wondering if I might be able to talk to Anita. How much posture is that? I'm not going to get anybody, right? Because there is no posture in that. But the fact is that I can call up and say, hi, this is Patti Nelson with Legal Shield. I need to speak with Anita. That has posture. That has some meat to who I am. My voice has posture, control, confidence in it, and you have to have that when you're on the phone. Because if you don't, there's no way you're going to build rapport with the gatekeeper at any point in time. There's no way that they're really going to want to help you because you're not high on the priorities list because it doesn't sound like you know what you want. Determine the hours of the gatekeeper, because if you have a gatekeeper that's giving you lots of problems and is not putting you through, and you can figure out, when they work, then call when they're not there. Or if they switch out at lunch and you can call in at lunch. How many of you actually call businesses at lunch? I call at lunch all the time. Because who's away? Gatekeeper. Who leaves at 4:30? Gatekeeper. Okay? Who's not there at 5 o'clock? Gatekeeper. Okay? Determine some hours that work better for you in your cold calling if you don't want to have to deal with too many gatekeepers. And then voicemail. Do you leave a voicemail or do you not? It all depends. I say maybe. It's about the only time I say maybe because most of the time it's yes or no. But it's the only time I say maybe because I don't leave it on the first 2 or 3 calls because I want to get to that person. And I don't want them to form an opinion about a voicemail. And I don't want them to form an opinion about me through a voicemail. But if I've called them 2 or 3 times, if we've actually talked on the phone and we just haven't connected, then yes, I will leave a voicemail. Here's something else that I left out earlier when I was talking about that 30 seconds. We talked about if they said yes. What if the decision maker says, no, this isn't a good time? Then here's what I say. I understand that, Vicki. Thank you so much for taking my phone call. When should I call you back? Because then they're going to tell me, and guess what? When I call back, my statement is, hi Vicki, this is Patti Nelson. I called earlier this morning. You asked me to call you back this afternoon at 2. I was just touching base with you on that call. Here's why I was calling. I'd like to set an appointment for 11 minutes because I want to be able to help your employees take care and improve your bottom line, whatever your spiel is, okay? But by doing that and having them set the time, then guess what? I get a whole lot more done that way because by asking yes or no, because when I call back, they're willing to take my phone call because I let them go off the phone. And I don't get a lot of people that say, well, no, it's not a good time. But when you do, they're so appreciative that you're willing to not badger them when they've got something else going on. Because you don't know what you're interrupting, right? Because you're not there. And so if you are focused and you take care of your people, it's so much easier. Okay? So we're going to stop here for a minute. Find somebody else that you don't know. Turn around in your chair. Move if you have to.
By the way, I'm Jane.
Okay, pick an A and B. Now, because you probably tried to call me A's, you get to go first. Here you go. We're going to have about 15 seconds. And I know that you haven't thought through your whole script yet of what you want to say, but here's what we're going to focus on. Your name, Legal Shield, where you're calling from, and what is it that you want. Ready? Go. Here's something else I'm going to tell you. Go home and practice. Okay? And practice in front of your mirror. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to look at myself while I'm calling. It's the best thing you could ever do. Because when you practice in front of the mirror, you're going to see what you actually look like when you're talking on the phone. And can you tell when somebody's having a really bad day on the phone and they're not smiling? Exactly. And if you're not prepared and if you don't have that sense of who you are, what you look like, what you feel like when you're on the phone, that translates through the phone to the person you're talking to. Okay? How many times have you called someone and you start talking and they say, wow, what's going on? Are you having a bad day? How did they know that? It's your voice, it's your inflection, everything else. And so when you're getting ready to be in the recording studio, when you're getting ready to put your song together, be prepared. Be prepared for what you're going to say, who you want to talk to, but practice. Record yourself and listen to the tone of your voice. Because what you think you sound like inside your head is very different when someone hears you. And sometimes you may have a tone to your voice that is not so nice. Well, you may need to change that. You may need to understand that. You may have a really, really heavy accent. Now, I live in Texas, y'all. Okay, I can say y'all and I can be the Southern Belle when I need to be, okay? But I don't speak that way on the phone because a lot of times it's very difficult to understand, especially when in the South we always want to help people. Now what does that sound like on the phone? Give me a break. So you want to understand what you sound like, what you look like, so record yourself and listen to it. It's amazing how much you can change your voice in different situations. And then when you're calling, here's some really, really good tips. When I make my phone calls in the morning, I stand up. Because is my voice different than when I'm sitting down? It is very different, isn't it? Because I don't have the expansion of the muscles in my chest that allow for more inflection, changes in my voice. And when I stand up, you can tell how much it changes, didn't it? It changed. And so I always make my phone calls standing up for that reason. The other reason is because it's a much more powerful position. Because I'm standing up, I can talk with my hands, I have my headset on, and I feel like I can move, I can talk, I can do. When you're sitting down and people say, well, no, we're not interested. No, they're not here. No. You start to kind of sink into that chair, and it's like, you get to feeling really bad with the fact that you're not doing anything. If you're standing up and you're in that power position, and you're moving and you're talking and you're walking, you don't start to feel that way. Even if they say no, it's like, okay, yeah, no big deal. It's all right. Be dressed for work. You know, we all work out of our homes, right? But how many of you go to work in your gym shorts? Yeah, see, I don't. Because I want to feel like a business owner, and so I'm dressed and ready for work when I'm ready to make my calls. Now, I have a lot of other things that I have to do because I have girls, I got to get to school, but the thing is if you're dressed and you're ready and you stand in that power position, you are owning your business. And you need to have an affirmation before you start calling. My affirmation is all the people that I want to talk to today are going to be there and they're excited to talk to me. Doesn't that start your day out a whole lot better? Because what do most of us think about when we get ready to pick up the phone? Oh, no, I gotta pick up the phone. Yeah. I don't know if I want to do this. It's going to be, And then we think about, they're going to say no, right? I want you to visualize this. How many of you have gone out to eat at a restaurant in the last week or so? Okay. How many of you, toward the end of the meal, with your glass of water or glass of tea, had a waiter come by and say, would you like some more water or tea? Okay? If you were at the end of your meal, what did you typically say? No, right? Okay. So here's the waiter and the waitress. They have the pitcher of the tea and the pitcher of the water, right? Did you see them walk over to the other corner of the restaurant? And I'm going to go down here. Okay? And did they pour the water on them and act like the Wicked Witch in the Wizard of Oz movie and say, "I'm melting"? They said no. Did they do that?
No. The next table.
They moved on to the next table, right? Because we're not going to get everybody, right? But we get so hung up on the fact that we're going to get a no that it completely paralyzes us in our ability to make the phone calls. So now when you think about getting that no, you have this visual of, "I'm melting, I'm melting, I'm melting." It's not going to happen. You'll be okay. Like I said, nobody died from cold calling. Okay, you won't melt. But the thing is the waiter and the waitress just keep moving down the row of tables. That's what we have to do. We just keep moving because this is a numbers game. It is a total numbers game. And so I want to share with you now, I told you about the formula that I have, because most of us know that we have to have activity. And in order to have a hit song, you've got to have activity enough to make things translate into what is going on, right? Okay. So whether you're spare time, part-time, or full-time, this formula will work for you because it's going to be based on, what your goal is as far as how much money you want to make. And that's where I start. So I want you to, and this is going to be kind of a long formula, so you're going to want to write this down. Number one, I want you to write down what is it that you want to make in your group business this month. It's August, it's a new month, and be realistic. I know that everybody wants to make $100,000 or $1 million, but this month, based on your current business and what you've been doing, do you want to make $500 out of your group business? Do you want to make $1,000? Do you want to make $2,000? Whatever it is, write down that number. Now you probably will want to pull out your iPhones because you're going to have to use a calculator. I'm going to tell you how to do it, but you may want to do it as well. Then you're going to divide that number by the group commission level that you're currently at. Here's something that you should think about. If you're doing a lot of group, 15% is going to come off of the top of that commission amount because they're putting it in your reserve balance, right? And if you're part of MOS, the MAS program, which I highly recommend, especially if you're going to do a lot of group, because if you're not in MOS, you'll never be able to access the Elite MOS program, which gives you a whole level of people that will help you in maintaining your business. So if you have MOS, you got to take the the $595 or $695, whatever state you're in, off of that commission, so that you're getting an accurate commission. So at the ED level, I know that commission is $149.62. Okay, I just know that because that's what that. So you're going to divide that number by your commission, and that's going to tell you what, how many applications you need to make that amount of money. Okay. Then you divide that number by 40%. And that's your closing ratio. Now I use 40% because I'm doing conservative. I have a much higher closing ratio than that, but some of you may not have done a lot of group, and you don't know what your closing ratio is. 40 is pretty conservative. You can use whatever number you want, but I always use 40. That's going to tell you how many people you need to be in front of to get the applications that you need with a 40% closing ratio. Everybody with me so far? No.
Yeah.
Vicki can help you. So that's going to give you how many people you need to be in front of. Then what I do is I take the average size of my groups. Now I told you we want to focus on 20 to 80, so let's just use 20 person groups. You divide the number that you need to be in front of by 20 person groups, or whatever size it is. That tells you how many groups you need to have this month to get to that revenue level. Then you take the number of groups. Everybody with me so far? I'm getting some stares. We'll do it again. We'll do it one more time. Okay? So we have the number of groups. So then you have to determine, Well, if I have to get that many appointments, then I have to times that number of groups by 40. And here's why. Because 40 phone calls typically result in 4 appointments for one group, typically. That's just statistically, and that's the company numbers. So if you need 3 groups this month, you're going to have to make 120 calls.
Now that's 120 conversations.
Calls, yeah.
Talking to 120 people.
It's only 30 seconds. Is it
No,
dials?
dials.
Okay.
Because 40 calls, 40 dials, 4 appointments, because you're going to get through to some of them. You're not going to get through to everybody. That's why it's
Right.
40 dials,
Right.
4 appointments, 1 group. Okay? So you're going to be, so if you need 8 groups, 8 times 40 is
320.
320. So then you're breaking it up on how many calls a day or a week, or if you only want to call 1 day a week, you know how many calls you need to make to be able to get that portion of your group. And then the other thing that you want to determine is that if it's 99 employees or less, how many times are you going to offer the small business plan? Because I will tell you, the majority of people in the group arena
They don't.
never offer the small business plan, which is totally bizarre to me. Okay? Because they all need it. So make sure that you're offering the small business plan as well to that business owner, because they need it. All right, so let's go through that formula one more time. I'm going to go a little faster this time. We're going to speed read.
I think everybody got the math where you figured out how many apps you needed to make your goal, right?
Right. Right.
Okay, so we're just going to go through again.
From the beginning.
So the amount of money that you'd like to make
In your group business.
divided by your commission gives you the number of applications you need. Divided by 40%, because that tells you how many people you need to be in front of.
See, that's where everybody gets lost because the math's just
Right.
wrong. The math is weird.
No, you divide by 0.4.
If you
No,
want 10
divided by 0.4.
10 applications is 25 people.
Correct, thank you. If you need 10 apps, you divide it by 40%, you have to be in front of 25 people.
Right.
If your average group is 10 in that situation, then you have to be in front of 2.5 groups. So money divided by commission, divided by 40%, divided by the average size of your group to tell you how many groups you need, okay? Times 40. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes. I have set all of my goals for the last 6 years utilizing that formula. And it comes true almost all of the time as far as the calls and the things and the activities that I need to make. You can use the same formula for small business, okay, as well. You can use the same formulas for CDL. It doesn't matter however you break up your business, but that allows you and it will help you get through that situation and set those goals. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Does that, your commission amount, is that based on identity theft and legal?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I don't sell them apart.
Okay.
I do not believe that a car without wheels works very well. Okay? And so I never break, I very rarely break apart the legal and the identity theft because it's a pairing, it gives us the whole shield, and I just don't believe that I would be doing my clients the best if I don't offer that. Okay? If you're out there offering the premium, you just utilize the commission structure of whatever you're offering in that formula. Okay? Now we've got about 10 or 12 minutes left, and I want to open it up for questions because, I don't like to just stand up here and just dump stuff on you, because I want you to get out of this what you need in regards to this program. So, yes, ma'am.
What do you say when you talk to a decision maker or someone on the phone, they've heard of prepaid legal or Legal Shield before, maybe had a bad enrollment or a bad experience, but it was several years ago and they don't remember who they spoke to?
Okay. Everybody hear that question? Okay. What I typically say, if they've already heard of or have had a bad experience with prepaid legal or someone else, is that number one, we are really a transformed company because we're new. We have had significant changes in our quality assurance, how we're providing our business and how we provide our services. And if it has been several years, you probably would like to at least take a look at the changes so that you can see what we've done to improve the services. And because we have 80,000 companies that are now utilizing our services, it becomes something that they want to actually look at because there's a whole lot of other people in the area doing it. And if I have clients that are similar type companies, like a steel company, I'll drop a couple names of companies that are utilizing it in their area as well. So that they know that they're not out there on their own. They're the only one looking at it. Yes, sir.
Do you ever drop, I'm sorry. Do you ever, just in your phone call, maybe drop a name or two of maybe a major company that's using LegalShip?
If I get that as a question or an objection, if the business owner asks, well, you know, is there anybody else in the area that is utilizing these services, then yes, I will. But I typically don't, when I'm making the appointment, because that's what I'm after, making the appointment, I typically will save that for the decision maker meeting, because that's where I'm going to actually talk about other companies, or if they want a reference list, I'm going to be able to answer that question there. And for those of you who are brand new, that don't have a reference list, okay, work with a field trainer in your area. They will have a reference list. Work with someone in your upline support, or have corporate send them some references after you've met, because they will do that for you. Ron.
When you get the gatekeeper on the phone and you introduce yourself and ask for a person by name, they say, well, may I tell them what it's about or what it's in regard to?
Well, typically because of my intro, which is, hi, my name is Patti Nelson. I'm with Legal Shield. May I speak with Bill? And they ask what it's in reference to. Then I'm going into my 10-second commercial of, this is bloop. Okay. I typically, if the gatekeeper is really, really persistent, I always ask the gatekeeper, have you ever heard of identity theft? And I'm nodding my head on the phone, and they will say, oh yes. And I said, has it ever happened to you? And they say, well, no, but I know someone. And I said, did it take them a long time to get over that? And they said, well, yeah. I said, well, the reason I want to speak with Bill is we have a solution that are going to help the employees focus on the bottom line for the company, keep them present, and we will take care of them so that when that happens, they've got access and resources. And my key phrase is access and resources. Because the majority of people out there do not have access to attorneys or identity theft professionals, and they have no idea what resources they may or may not need. And so we fill that whole gap because we give them access and resources just like their healthcare card does. And so one of the key phrases that I'm always using is I want to provide access and resources to help your employees. Any other questions? Yes, you're in the back. Oh, sorry. You were right in line. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, all right, here I go. I actually had a scenario where I dropped off a package at a medical facility. This particular doctor does not have voicemail. So they said, no problem, leave it with the office manager. I did, I met with that person. And then back and forth the phone calls, then it was another office manager, same scenario. There was another office manager, same scenario. So we haven't gotten anywhere. So at that point, where do I go?
3 different office managers.
Yes.
Okay, is it just different levels of office managers, or are they leaving?
They just keep coming in and out, and they are just starting no matter what.
No matter what. Have you asked to meet with the practice manager?
I did, and they referred me back to the office manager first.
Fantastic. So did you actually sit down with the office manager?
Yes, all three people.
All 3 times? And you left packages with them?
Yes.
Okay. Do they have email?
The office manager?
No. The practice manager or the doctor?
No.
They don't have email?
I'm telling you no. That's
Wow.
what, every time that I've gone in, it was just, no, we don't have, I asked the doctor personally, so well, do you have an actual email? No, everything just goes through the office manager.
Okay.
You just pass the buck to the office manager, and I'm going through 3 different office managers.
Next. Yeah, next. You're not gonna get them all. I would make sure that that particular office, that current office manager has the HR video so that she can look at it. But, at some point in time, until they kind of get their stuff together, I'm not sure that I would even worry about it. Yeah. Sir, you had a question right behind her.
On a walk-in, once you've gotten the name of the business owner or the person who handles employee benefits, do you leave any materials behind for them, or do you just thank the person you spoke with for their time and leave?
I don't leave anything behind because I don't want them to form an opinion until I get to meet with them. And they will form an opinion on whatever you leave, good, bad, or indifferent, either way. And so all I get is their name, their business card, I say thank you, and I make the phone call in a day or 2. I'm not a fan of leaving things.
Not even your business card?
I don't leave my business card either. Because again, they can form an opinion, and I prefer that they form the opinion when I talk to them.
I was told that they do not hold employee meetings,
Okay?
but the office manager was not against me bringing in something to put into their salary, their paychecks. What do you do in that circumstance?
I use a payroll stuffer, and I make sure that you have the video, the new group video now that they can watch. And I highlight the fact that they can watch it online, and then have the application available through the HR person if that's the only way that they'll do it. I don't run into that a lot, but occasionally we will. I think we have time for one more question.
3 minutes.
Did the microphone go somewhere? Oh, it's at the back of the room. Okay. One more question.
What new group video are you speaking of? The 4-minute product overview video?
4.5-minute video. It's the LegalShield.com/group video/LSGP plus IDT, or you can do it with the premium or whatever, but utilize that video. I utilize that video as an entry point before I do the enrollment, and I also use it after an enrollment. It is on all of my material so that they can always watch it at any point in time, so that they know what they're coming to see.
Repeat that one more time. Sorry.
LegalShield.com/group video/LSGP plus the plus sign IDT. And all of those letters are in caps.
One more time, please.
LegalShield.com/group video/LSGP plus IDT. It's 4.5 minutes. It's very well done. It answers a lot of questions, and it's got the group pricing in it.
And Patty, you mentioned you show that before the enrollment and after the enrollment, what did that mean?
I don't show it. I send it to the HR person to blast it out
Okay.
so that they know what it is. I send it after the meeting, and it's on all the material that I hand in my enrollment so that they can watch it. They can take it home and watch it with their spouse after they've signed up.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. Do you focus strictly on the standard plan with the IDT, or do you consider doing the expanded plan as well?
I typically only offer the standard plan in most of my groups because I do a lot of blue-collar companies, and they're always very concerned about how much is coming out of their check. And so the standard and the basic identity theft is what I'm typically offering. Some companies are now looking at the premium a little more as well.
Add minors?
Oh yes, always add minors. Yes, sir, in the back of the room. All the way in the back. I thought you raised your hand.
I was just wondering about that address, but I'll figure that out.
I'll get it to you when we're done. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what do you do? I'm a newbie, so I need to know, what do you put in when you put a group package together, what do you put in it?
What I put in it is a one-page bullet point sheet of what our membership does and an application. It's not a lot. And on the front of, and I put them in manila folders with my label on the little, you know, the tab, that's the word I was looking for, I couldn't come up with that tab. I put my label on it so it's stuck to it, and then I have another label that has that website that I just gave printed on it, and I put that on the front of the folder as well, so they know exactly where to go and see that. Okay? I keep it very, very simple. I don't want them rustling a lot of paper, so it's very simple what I hand out.
Is that Rob Best bullet point document you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
Why? Do you
I
have
just-
access to it?
I'm sorry?
Do you have access, or can they have access to it?
I'll be glad to send anyone that would like to see the bullet point listing that I have on the very first slide on your sheet is my email address. I'll be more than happy to email it to anyone that would send me an email. And if you want to use it, that's great. I have no problem. So, thank you all very much. I'm going to stay here for just a few minutes if you have questions. You've got some incredible rest of the day presentations. I hope you enjoy all of them. We really appreciate you guys being here. And thank you so much. Good luck with you.